Let's record. It's fine, I can edit audio as well.
Speak louder.
For the mic.
Yeah, it's picking it up. That's what I'm saying. Like it picks up the room. It's not picking up. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Help I'm an Adult podcast. And if you're new to the channel or new to the podcast, welcome. It's nice to have you. I'm Sharon Alfred, your host for today. Well, always anyway. And today we're talking all things working during COVID, basically. And today I have my dear friend, my sister, well, not by blood, but she is still my sister, Heritage. She's here with us, actually, Dr. Heritage Oluwaronke.
Put some respect on my name.
Yes, Dr. Heritage Oluwaronke. And we are discussing working during COVID times. So introduce yourself to the people.
So like she said, my name is Heritage Oluwaronke. So I am a newly qualified doctor.
We have a doctor in the family, that's all we care about. We're like, yes.
Yeah, so it's super exciting. Still baby doctor, newly qualified. But yeah.
Nice. So I think I'll kick things off with a question. And then, so where were you once COVID happened and hit?
So actually, funny story, I was in the Philippines. So for my final year of uni, you do something called a medical elective, where you do a hospital placement anywhere around the world. Mm-hmm. So I chose the Philippines, so I was there when COVID kicked off and we went into lockdown. So unfortunately my trip got cut short and I had to come back. Had to come back into lockdown. Came back into lockdown and then we got a message from our uni basically saying that final year medical students and nursing students were going to be graduated early and thrown out into the workforce to help with COVID. So that I think that was not how I expected my 2020 graduation.
I was looking forward to a whole graduation party, everything.
I had my dress, I had everything. I was so upset that I didn't get a graduation.
So what was like, so you knew you were coming back, they said you're graduating, you're basically starting work, but you didn't know where, like I'm guessing you already had your placement, your job like secured in a hospital. So like what was it like thinking I'm going to go into work basically in a hospital which is like the COVID hotspot, if you put it that way, like getting to interact with people?
I think it was definitely a fear of the unknown in a lot of ways. So I already had my job secured, so I already knew what hospital I was going to be working in. And then I got back and everything was just the unknown because no one knew how COVID was progressing. And then the health secretary just announced that they would like final year medical students and nursing students to be graduated early and put in the workforce to help. And I don't know really what my feelings were. I don't think I was particularly nervous because, I don't know, it's the career I chose and I knew it was inevitable. I was gonna go into hospital anyway. But I think it was just, obviously you have nerves of first time working, your first job anyway, regardless of what that job is. And then it was just expedited by COVID because I didn't know what hospital was like since pre-COVID. So I think it was more that of a first job, but this is such weird
high intensity. Yeah. So in terms of, I can't even imagine doing that because I remember just them saying like everybody's working from home now, and I was like, yes, this is it. Whereas I was like, when you came back and you were going to hospital, I just remembered being like, God, please, like keep her safe. I didn't know how intense, it is in hospitals. You're in Cardiff. I don't know what exactly the program, like, are you secure? And people were talking about how, like, the PPI, like, protective stuff wasn't enough. And I was like, please let Heritage be safe. This is what she's always wanted to do. Let it all work out well. But it seems to be going well. Like, have you had a moment in hospital where you're like, ooh, maybe not today?
I think the biggest thing for me when I started was I had massive imposter syndrome. So we've all worked really hard for years and years and years, and I was always looking forward to my first job and, you know, being a qualified doctor and like everything I've always wanted to be and everything, and it was super exciting. But there was just an overwhelming sense of imposter syndrome when I actually got into hospital. And then I think that was also expedited by the media and my family and friends being so proud of me, and like they were praying for me and everything. And I think it was exciting, but it was just such a big moment that sometimes, you know, you get really insecure and you're like, I've got all this responsibility now, can I handle it? So I think that was the biggest thing for me, was everyone being like, oh, they're so proud of you, and like they're clapping for the NHS, and when people find out you work for the NHS, everyone was so proud, which is so great. But I think it was just I think I just had massive imposter syndrome. That was probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think at some point in adults in life, everyone experiences that imposter syndrome. Like, hold up, is this me? Is this what is meant to be happening? Is this what this, or even if it's the plan all along, you're just like, but is it though? I don't know. And you mentioned it briefly, but with the clapping with the NHS, how did that, like, was that like an empire? Because you're the only person I know who works with the NHS. Was that something that you're like, yeah, thank you, like, was it something you needed? Do you think the NHS or people, this might be controversial, so I'm just going to put that out there, but I just need to know, like, was it empowering? Was it helpful? Was it encouraging? What was it?
So just put a disclaimer, this is a personal view. I don't speak for all of the NHS staff, no one come at me. But I think I remember the first week, I was like, oh, this is actually so great that everyone is really appreciating the NHS staff. I was like, oh, fine. And then, to be honest, it got old. And I think I became less of a fan of it. I think the problem was, there was a lot of pressures working for the NHS, and there's been a lot of things said about pay disputes and things like that. And I think there's more that could have been done than just a clap. And sometimes I felt like the government were like, well, here's your clap. That's it. So I was like, oh yeah, well, the clap is great, but then do more. Like, we actually need more. We need more in terms of funding for the NHS. We need more for support of staff. We need more. There's more that can be done. So I think that's when the clap got annoying, because it was kind of to stop us from complaining for what actually matters in terms of funding and supporting.
And actually what will keep the NHS running.
Exactly.
Physically. And I remember that first week, like, in our little close cul-de-sac, everyone was out, pots and pans, and I was like, oh, this is great. It always happens to fall a time I'm cooking dinner, so I was not risking burning my food, but I was clapping, and I knew, like, of course my sister is part of this. People were like, yes, we're so proud of you. I'm not like standing outside my door. And then as the weeks went along, I realized the numbers reduced. Which I was like, oh, that was quick. Like, week 1, week 2, yes. Week 3, it got to like that point where you could just say, like, people either forgot, or the first week there was somebody who did, like, from, I don't know where that blowhorn came from, but we could hear it, so everyone knew it was time to clap. But that blowhorn did not happen at week 3, and from then on nothing happened. So people just came out when they wanted, and I was like, oh, that was quick. Everyone lost momentum about this. I guess maybe because I live in such a small town. I don't know about the big towns, but I always wondered if it had an effect. So I guess, like, it's again, this is her personal view. Please, nobody add her at anything.
Please.
And also, in the midst of COVID, we're just going to touch on this really briefly. The Black Lives Matter movement became very prominent, and I've talked about this in, like, the first episode anyway, to just summarize the whole of like COVID, basically 2020.
Yeah.
And I know, like, we were both social media. We were there, like, making our noises as much as we can on our, like, individual platforms.
Absolutely.
And I know at work now, I'm taking a break because I literally feel like I've not had a break mentally from just separating and me having time for me to think about the whole thing. But I just went in head first because I was like, if nobody else is going to do it the way I believe it should be done, if I don't, or myself and some of the other, like, race and community network in our office. So how is dealing with that and being so you basically like you've been in basically I feel like at the front line of both of the 2020 like matters and movements. First of all, COVID, but then dealing with COVID, being black in the NHS, all of that jazz. Go.
This is such a big topic. So
I'm here. I'm ready to hear.
I mean, 2020 has been crazy. So obviously, you know, exciting. I'm starting my first job for the NHS, and one thing we need to realize is I love the NHS so dearly, but there's a massive problem in terms of racism in the NHS as well, in terms of pay discrepancies between races, between genders. So I knew what I was going into as a career is that I would have to face that. And like, I'm sure a lot of black people, the Black Lives Matter movement, which has been incredible, I think it's definitely changed my 2020. It just gave people a platform to talk about things they've been meaning to talk about and things that they've been keeping in. And so I've always been aware of the fact that I'm black and like I'm dark skinned, like you can't like you puppet. Everyone can see so clearly. I can't change my skin color. So I've always been very aware of my space in the world and how I fit into the world around me. And so it was something that I was always going to be very cautious of going into working for the NHS and being a black female doctor, which, you know, it's still a big thing being a black female doctor. And I think I had so many emotions with Black Lives Matter. It made working really hard.
I can imagine.
Because through medical school, I've had my fair share of microaggressions and even macroaggressions from patients and colleagues. And it's always been something that I could always brush off. And it wasn't fine, but I could handle it.
I felt like, I'd like, when you say brush off, I would say it's like, you know what it is, but you're just like, ugh, this is no battle that you're in. Like, you just don't have that, would I say push, or just the intent to drive and want to actually fight it? It's just like,
Yeah. So
it becomes too normal.
Yeah.
It became too normal to accept it. And so we just accepted it. So that's what we mean by brush off. We're not just saying it doesn't matter. It did matter. It does.
So there's this thing with racial fatigue, which I suffer from, my friend. I suffer from racial fatigue. And I think that's the problem, is because of that, you're exhausted. And sometimes to protect yourself, to protect your energy, sometimes you do have to just take things and just take it. To protect yourself in that situation, because not a lot of environment it's in a way where you could express yourself in a safe space. But one thing I found, I was so empowered from Black Lives Matter movement, and I was empowered by young people my age and younger who were saying, no, we're not taking this, we're going to speak up. I was so proud.
The protest we went for, guys, we sat there, and the girl who basically, one of the girls who helped organize it, well, two of them, and we know one of them because we went to the same high school, and I just remember them giving their speech, and I was like, I was the first person to stand up in a crowd to be like, yes, girl, you literally just spoke our minds. It was so empowering. And this was like in the town we grew up, grew up in, which is predominantly white, understandable, we're in Britain, but like, when I say the macro and microaggressions that I experienced in this town, wow. And then when she even said, like, in the class, the teacher called a black student the N-word, I was like, wow, they even went that far? I was like, whoa. And, like, calling them out was just such a big, I think for the town, it was a big deal that they could even have a protest. And I was like, you know what? We had to show up and show out, and we did. And I'm so proud. And well done for starting the chant as well. I remember. It was so much fun. But, I can imagine... As you can imagine, like on the previous episode, when this all kicked off, I did like what I call the emergency episode, speaking up, and I spoke, and then myself and some of my friends from uni and work were on the podcast as well, and everybody was like basically said what it is they would like to do in terms of moving if not under the Black Lives Matter umbrella, but actually discussing and fighting the racial injustices in the world. So is there anything that you like, how would you say you've done that and made that move?
Oh, that's a big question. So what I've done in terms of fighting the racial
and actually, like, in whatever. So I know, like, for us at work, they're very keen on, like, education and driving an educative piece. So I'll say I'm supporting, but that's not, like, my key thing. My thing is more like allowing people to actually speak up and giving people the confidence to say. And when I say people, black people in the office, confidence to be like, call out whoever and whoever. So even if it's a boss, I can confidently go and report them and be like, yo, they were racist, this is what they did. So that's kind of that's where I'm standing in terms of work. So is there anything, so it doesn't have to be work related, just in life generally?
I think for me, one thing that I've learned and I've grown in, so I've given myself a lot of grace in this in 2020, is patience. So I think part of my racial fatigue, my chronic racial fatigue that I was suffering from before Black Lives Matter, was that I just felt, which I think on some levels I was right. I felt that it wasn't my responsibility to educate non-black people. Like, okay. It's not my responsibility.
I agree with that completely.
So I got to a point in my life where I just decided that ignorance is just not a good enough reason for whatever macroaggression you're throwing at me.
Ignorance is not an excuse
just
anymore.
Because you don't know. Because this is the thing. I love this generation because this is the most access anyone has ever had
to any, like, just to information.
Yeah, to information. And so it's out there staring at you in the face, and you calling ignorance is because you've just chosen to just not look at it.
Yeah.
And so that was my biggest thing, where I refused to educate people. I just took it as your person, like, this is who you are, whatever you throw at me. And I think one thing I've grown in and I've got a lot of grace in is education.
Yeah.
So obviously a lot of us, social media is an amazing platform to just put that out there, even as aggressive as you want, just educate the masses. So I think I got a lot of grace in actually being patient and educating people and being like, okay, this is such a great time because this is the time people are listening.
To everyone actually, is paying attention.
And like educate people and give people resources, and you know, and then I can be like, well, then ignorance, you have no excuse for that ignorance.
Yeah, because I've told you exactly.
I've told you, and I've educated you. I've given you resources, and I even had difficult conversations with best friends.
I had this similar thing, but I had this friend be like, I listened to the podcast, I listened to what, like, you and your friends discussing and all of that, and she was like, can we have a phone call? Just because, again, she grew up in a not so diverse background. She was saying, like, the most diverse they had was like a Filipino family, and she was friends with the girl, and that was it for most of her. And I was like, okay, but I was even glad she reached out. At least I didn't, you know what? Like, there were friends. Well, I say friends now, possibly acquaintances, who never said a word. They never posted. If you're not a social media person, I actually understood if they don't post. But if I've had a conversation with you in this between then and now, and you've still not acknowledged or asked how you're doing, or like even when I brought up the topic and you've somewhat brushed it off, I noticed. I noticed very much. But there's some people, but this girl, I was like, I don't know why I didn't think of it, like, in terms of, I didn't think, she'd find it difficult for some reason, because she's, again, dear friend, like, pure heart, just such a lovely person. And when we had a good, like, hour, almost an hour and a half on the phone, and she's like, I want to understand better why this is a big deal. And I was like, okay. So, and then she explained, she was like, that's why when this happened, when we were in this place, I was like, yes, that's what. And just seeing her actually understand it, I was like, okay, so maybe this is why I should educate people. that was my point, because at first I was like, can't be bothered to educate, because even I don't know everything. That's another thing. Everyone believes every black person knows every black history. I don't know stuff.
I don't know. I'm literally educating myself in 2020 about a lot of things. And the thing is, there is a lot of grace of falling down, because I fall down with some stuff. And I think I appreciate people coming to me with honesty.
Yeah, for sure.
And not sugarcoating things. And especially people who I'm really good friends with, there's a safe space, and I'm talking about non-black people. There's a safe space for you to come to me and say you're toxic, that you don't know is toxic.
Let's say it.
Yeah, like what your thoughts were, or your, I don't know, pre-assumptions or whatever, to come to me, because it's a safe space, and then we can talk about it, rather than just not saying anything because you don't want to offend me.
Yeah, I would rather, like you said, I'd rather you say something than say nothing. Yeah. There's so much that we could cover on this, I'm just saying, but I feel like we've been going on for a while.
We have.
There's just so much. But in summary, I would say, would you say you enjoy being a doctor in this time? Or is it more like the challenge that it brings in being, well, black and COVID times? Are you enjoying it? Is it good?
I think one thing I would say is, I love my job. I don't know anything else. So I don't know what it's like to be a doctor without COVID. I don't know what it's like to be a doctor without the 2020 Black Lives Matter movement. So I think I don't do a lot of what ifs. This is my situation. This is all I know. And I love it. And so that's one thing I would say is I love my job, and yeah.
You could. Well, I'm glad you could join me today.
Thanks for having me.
It's been fun. And,
we can talk for hours.
We actually could. So, sorry this is going for a while. But yeah, I would definitely, like, as always, keep you in my prayers all the time. And do you want to share your socials? Do you need followers? She's very active on Instagram.
I would say probably Instagram. No one needs to follow my TikTok. I am a TikTok.
I was gonna say, should we put TikTok as well?
No, I'm a TikTok addict, but that's just for me. But so my Instagram is Dr. Hez, so DR_HEZ, and it's public. So yeah, follow me.
Workouts are there. When she works out,
when I work out,
you can see
I've been slacking a bit because I've been tired. But yeah, it's kind of a mixture of
it's
random
like a
things.
day in the life happens. There's some skincare routine stuff you can look at. She also posted like things you can watch, so the entertainment fact to like educate yourself.
Yeah,
it's a lot like everything is on there. It's on her feed, so I'll probably put a link to that below because we've talked about that more on this. And yeah, that's it for today. Other than that, goodbye people, and see you next time. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and thumbs up button to get notifications.
Subscribe and share this beautiful podcast. We love you.
Yes.
Thanks for
Bye
having me.
everyone. Bye.